Hi, everyone. Kate King here. Thanks for coming back for another exciting interview with the Healers interview series. Today, I have a really special treat for you. Today will be an interview with my dear friend and fellow colleague, Christine Vargo. She is a licensed clinical social worker in New York, in Brooklyn, and she specializes in Gestalt therapy and specifically work around transformation. So today, Christine will be walking us through transformation, why it's important, how we know if we're ready for transformation, and how to grab it. So please subscribe if you haven't already so that you can get notified when all of these great interviews come out and have access to the other great information on this channel. And I appreciate you being here with me. Enjoy the interview with Christine Vargo. All right. Hi, Christine Vargo. It's so nice to have you here with me.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I can't wait for all of the information about transformation that you're going to give us here today. But before we dive into the good stuff, do you want to just give us a couple of minutes introduction to just who you are, how you got to where you are now, and how you became so passionate about transformation work?
Yeah, and I'll give you my elevator answer.
Okay, perfect.
Because that could go, that's like a book. I am a Gestalt therapist. I am a certified Daring Way facilitator, which is based in Brene Brown's work. I'm in private practice and I'm based in Brooklyn, New York. And I've been in practice for going on 6 years. And I really love the idea of transformation. I think that what's happened for me in my own system, in my own life, is that I came to terms with a lot of my own things in my postgraduate work. And that and Renee's work actually were like divine intervention, saved my life, I fully believe. And really, the idea of transformation for me is having the space, the motivation, the will, the curiosity, to really understand who you are and what makes you you. And then getting back to your authentic self is really, I think, the work that I want to offer is to support my clients in understanding and knowing and recognizing who they are and living with new awareness and just being in purpose and passion with what they want, because I don't believe any of us are here by mistake. And so I lived many years totally shut down and outside of my body, and once I started to really dive in the Gestalt program, everything opened up. And so I really just love what I do in the sense of just being present and supportive for people that I work with, and just recognize that we're all just humans trying to have a human experience. And so, yeah, that's what I'm all about.
Okay. So, for folks who don't know about Gestalt therapy, can you give us just a little blip about that? And maybe can you create a bridge between Gestalt and transformation and how they connect?
Absolutely. So Gestalt is it's an experiential modality. It's present centered, and so it's all about connecting the mind and body and spirit, actually. And so when I'm working with a client and I'm offering them um, experiments to work with, it's all about what's happening in the present moment. So in Gestalt, my role is to help my clients become aware of themselves. So when they become aware of themselves, so we're born with the one need, which is love. And when we don't get this need met, we creatively adjust, or Freud called them defenses, but we creatively adjust in our experience. And those patterns that we develop throughout our childhood and in adolescence and young adulthood serve us. They kept us safe, they keep us safe until they don't. And usually people come into therapy when they're feeling stuck, they can't move forward, something's going on. And so really my role is to help people become aware of what those patterns are. And then with that awareness, they can choose to do something different from a more conscious and intentional place. So the transformation in that is really undoing this experience of, or just kind of undoing this conditioning that we've lived with for decades, and shallowing out these grooves of patterns, which takes time and practice and patience. But it's really shallowing out these experiences and recognizing, like, oh, I've lost who I am. I've lost my authentic self. I don't know what I want. I'm a people pleaser, or I don't know how to say no to people. I don't know what I actually want to have for dinner, let alone whether or not I want to have kids, right? So it's just this huge, in my opinion, Gestalt gives me the opportunity to offer space for clients to really become aware of what's happening in their body as well. So connecting with the answers that are in your body already.
I love that. So much of the mind body connection and kind of tying it together with a mindfulness practice feels like it helps people kind of move through whatever barriers they may have faced or whatever maladaptive patterns they may have developed. As you're talking about transformation, I'm not sure if this is just me, but I'm thinking about like the continuum of time, because you talk
Mhm.
about kind of like going back and sourcing from that space where things got stuck, and then there's this aspect of like moving forward and moving through to the life that you want and the person you want to be. But I think you said that you have to go back for your authentic self. Like your authentic self was always there, but somehow we lose it or we get conditioned away from it, and so we need to return to that sacred place so that we
Mhm.
can then move forward alongside with it. Does that feel right in terms of that continuum of time?
Absolutely. And I love that reflection, because what comes up for me is the experience. If I'm sitting with a client and the client is saying something that happened to them when they were 4, then I would invite their 4-year-old self into the room, or their 4-year-old part, have a conversation, have a dialogue. So you're essentially, there's a fixed gestalt around that experience that happened when they created the defense or the creative adjustment to survive. And so we go back and we look at and we check out what happened, was what was going on emotionally, what was going on in their body, what did this part need that didn't get their need met, and then how can you offer that part love and compassion, and really create a new gestalt around the experience, so the conditioning and the patterning starts to shift.
Right. So creating kind of a new narrative for an old pattern or an old part so that
Yeah.
you can move forward. It reminds me of the concept of sublimation that we learned in art therapy. This was sort of one of those grad school keywords that I always held on
Yeah.
to, and how sublimation is the way that you can use art to not just have a release or an insight, but to actually have a change that's meaningful and sort of integrated, and you move through whatever you're working on to get to carry sort of what you've gotten from the experience and bring it with you into some new version of where you
Mhm.
are and where you're going. And so
Yeah,
sublimation and transformation seem to have a lot in common.
definitely. I love that. And, you know, as I'm listening to you talk about sublimation, it reminds me of the layers that we talk about in the life experience layers that we talk about in Gestalt. So we live in games layer, which is like surface. We can be an impasse for decades. And then when we go through hard things, or when we start to feel really stuck, we're still an impasse, but then there's a moment or moments that we go through what's called death layer. And then we go through this transformation around through death layered into life. So then there's something else on the other side of it that's different, it's shifted, and you're not the same.
So just to reiterate, those steps are game layer, and
Game
then
layer, impasse,
impasse,
and then death
and then
into
death,
life.
and then life. Okay, to me that's like a phoenix rising kind of a system.
Yeah, totally. Yep.
Nice. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think I understand now better how the the Gestalt lens connects with the transformation piece. So, in your practice, you have developed a transformation program, which has
Yes.
become, I think, a really exciting project for yourself and your clients. Is there some type of, without revealing too much about your program so that we can keep some of it just sacred for your clients,
Yeah.
there any just like loose framework that you can share with us about how people move through that or how you present the transformation steps to people in real life?
Yeah. So the Imperfect 10 transformation is the program that I developed. It's 10 sessions. Each session is structured. And so I know in my work, this is something that's been living in my system now for probably 3 years. I just was vibrating when I woke up with it and was like, this is it, this is the thing. And I kept kind of really paying attention to what I was offering to my clients and who I was dialing into my practice. I fully believe we dial in the people we're meant to learn from as well. And so I was dialing in all these individuals who were struggling with, similar things. And I was finding that I was saying specific and similar experiments to clients as homework, as like, hey, try this out, see what this does. So the transformation, it's these 10 themes that I've honed in on, that I've talked about across my clients and my practice and in groups. And so really the beginning of it is really, as we were talking about before, understanding what those patterns are. You understand what those patterns are, and then you move into different things. I take from Brene Brown's work, I take from Kristen Neff's work on self-compassion. And so I've, kind of pieced together this thing where they start with understanding what those patterns are, really honing in on what they want to change, what they want to do with this new awareness. And then it's all about developing and understanding themselves and developing inner trust, developing a new way to communicate. If they grew up in passive aggressive household, for example, then they're more than likely going to be somebody who's a people pleaser, who's passive aggressive in their own communication with their own interpersonal relationships. And so recognizing that, just because you've been conditioned in your family of origin to be and behave a specific way, it doesn't mean you have to be that way forever. And so I fully believe and have hope that anyone can shift if they're willing and motivated to do it.
I believe that too. And I think sometimes that's really what a client needs of their therapist is to see the light around them that they can't see themselves quite yet and just to encourage them to keep looking for it.
Yeah, no, that's super. Yeah, definitely. I could have said exactly that to the last client that I worked with today. It's a good thing for me. I really like the structure that I've created in it because it keeps me paced and
Yes.
slow and like, hey, we're going to get there. This is the thing we're going to work on. And it's okay. I can meet you where you are now. Yeah, for sure.
So does that pacing allow for more integration because people aren't flooded with all these great ideas that they then sort of forget? It just gives them enough to really integrate one piece at a time.
Yes, 100%. And I really, I've had some opportunities in the last year to present this work differently. And what I learned from that experience was, hey, this work needs to be slow and intentional and one-on-one, whether it's me with a group or me with one person. I really believe in the integrity, like for the integrity of the work, it takes time to integrate. So it can't be fast paced.
That must be so hard for people because I feel like we live in sort of this fast food culture where people want to find the easy button and push it as fast as they possibly can and check all the boxes to be done with their healing work so that they can just arrive at that elusive place where things are better. And so it must be really challenging to sit with people and hold space for them in that slow rhythm.
It is, and it's a huge growing edge for me because I fully feel what that. I know what that, it resonates with me so much to have, when I started working in earning my clinical hours, I said to my supervisor at the time, I was like, I just want to know more. I just want to know more. I want to know more as a clinician so I can help more people in the way that I feel confident. And if my work is, endless, and I know that there's no summit to climb, or, there's no mountaintop to reach, but like my work informs the work that I do with my clients, because it really is about the relationship that's created between the client and the therapist. I'm not a flat wall. Mm-hmm. Right. And
right.
So I'm going to have feelings, or I'm going to have things come up for me. And that's the other thing I love about Gestalt, is because it's about what's in the field between the client and the therapist. And it's relational. So if I'm having feelings, then I can say, hey, I'm having feelings about this. I'm wondering what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's just very real and active in the moment. It sounds like it requires a lot of tracking and presence.
Yes, definitely. Which COVID has cut people off at the chest. So I can't, tracking on Zoom is hard, but
Right, I imagine. So
yeah.
speaking of COVID, I feel like because of the pandemic, there has been sort of the shadow side is the difficulty of this pandemic and all of the suffering, and the sunny side is kind of the meaning that people are trying to make out of this time that we've all lived through that was really out of all of our control, but we were still inundated with this
Mm-hmm.
sort of challenging energy. So I feel like there have been a few buzzwords that have kind of come across different circles, one of which is transformation. And so I'm curious, can you speak a bit just from your lens about, is transformation related to moving through this hard time, not just with the pandemic, but with the controversial political climate that went alongside with the pandemic and the social justice movements that have all been really active among so many of the other issues that feel like they've kind of come to the surface? How does transformation fit in with this interesting time that we're in right now?
That's such a good question. And I'm thinking about this, like COVID forced everyone to stop fully,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we know that, okay, there's going to be probably two camps of kinds of people in the response to that. There's going to be people who are like, or maybe three. Mental health is going to be a real issue because they've not had to stop at all throughout their life. And so those are the people who are over functioning, the people who are go, 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 go. And then if you're forced to stop and sit with yourself, what happens? And so those questions start to come up. And then I fully believe that the response to the murder of George Floyd would not have been what it was had we not been in the middle of a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was super highlighted and important, and so much movement came out of that experience, even though Black people, people of color, are getting still mistreated by the police, murdered by the police, and before, during, and after. I think the culmination of the perfect storm of that and the last administration also contributed, I think, a tremendous amount to highlighting all these things that you're talking about, right? And so I think to speak to answer your question, the transformation that is available to all of us is always here. And the hardest thing that we can do, I think, on any level as a human being, is to take the time to look at ourselves and understand why we're doing what we're doing. And so if you have an ounce of curiosity about what it is that you like, why you have this particular pattern, or why you keep dialing in people who treat you horribly, or why you keep finding yourself in jobs that suck or not a good match for you, then transforming or recognizing, like, oh, I need to come back to my authentic self. And like we were saying earlier, like doing that real work, giving yourself permission to feel your feelings is huge. Because if you were born, I'd say before 2010, you were not taught to feel your feelings.
Right. It just wasn't culturally acceptable for people to be sensitive.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So as you're talking, you're reminding me of this Elizabeth Gilbert quote, like, the universe buries jewels deep within and then stands back and watches to see if we can find them. So we have to like dig for these
Yep.
jewels, right? And it sounds like what you're saying about this time of the years 2020 and 2021 are that the jewels are a little closer to the surface, and
Yeah.
we still have to dig, but maybe not. Maybe the things that we really are ready to work on are becoming surfaced, whether it's individual about your particular life or your patterns, or collective about something like racism. So I feel like this is the time where things are being unearthed. And it sounds like you're saying the transformation piece is like answering that call and
Mhm.
looking down and seeing there are things that have been unearthed. What are we going to do with them? So
Yeah,
it's an active choice to transform. You don't just get to, sit back and transformation happens to you, even if it does sort of fall in your lap in the way that it has with this pandemic, much of the time presenting as really deep struggle or darkness, right? Not all blessings come shadow free and shining with brightness. Some of the blessings are the hardest things, and it's our job to grab them and to do the work around them.
totally.
So
100%.
my next question for you, Christine, is like, what do we do with mental health here? So when it comes to transformation, is transformation something that's accessible to all people, no matter where they are in the mental health spectrum? Or do you need to have a certain amount of ego strength or self reflection or ability to introspect in order to access transformation?
Yes, I think that, it's super important. I know that I wouldn't be able to do the work that I'm offering 10 years ago. If you've done a specific amount of reflection, or you have a curiosity about, and you've had some therapy work behind you before you can access what I'm asking you to access in the transformation program specifically, because there is a sense of like, I'm going to ask you to own your shit.
Mhm. Right, which is not an easy feat for 99.9% of us.
Right, exactly. But
Yeah,
it's so helpful, and it creates so much space, and you have so much more energy when you develop this practice. It's not overnight, and it's not a light switch. It's literally developing a practice of shifting how you communicate, shifting how you trust yourself, shifting how you talk to yourself, shifting, coming up with clear boundaries, living from a place of really abundance versus scarcity.
right. So, how would a person know if they've done enough personal work in order to really access this transformation? Is it obvious, or is it something that's kind of more nuanced?
Um, that's a good question. I think, like I said before, like I'm stuck in my work, I'm stuck in my relationship. I can't communicate. I don't know what my boundaries are. I have no idea what I want. And I think if people are asking themselves those questions, or kind of resonating with those statements, then they're probably ready to do the work. If it's individuals who are really contracted and struggling and not functioning at the level that they want to, then we can do some work around depression, anxiety, what's actually happening, what's getting in the way, and then go into the themes.
Okay, yeah. So it sounds like taking accountability, being able to self reflect, being able to own your shit, those are signs that maybe you're ready. And maybe signs that you're not quite ready yet would be projecting blame onto other people, not being able to own your own stuff and feel responsible, being really afraid of looking inward, or feeling like you're kind of covered over by your mental health symptoms and not able to see yourself from that self actualization place.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
some therapy work is probably the best thing for someone before they can access the transformation work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's super helpful to hear from you, because I do think that it's important that we access the layers that we're ready to access, and we don't try to force layers that aren't really freed up yet, because then we can really destabilize our systems. So
Mhm.
I'm glad that you spoke to that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, everything happens as it will.
So, if someone wanted to delve a little bit more into transformation work, maybe if they're wanting to dabble more or if they're not ready for a full on transformation program, do you have any resources or tips or ideas that someone might be able to just access at home that you would recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of books that I absolutely love. Um, Brene Brown, of course. Anything she's written, I would invite people to check out, but also Glennon's Glennon Doyle's Untamed and Love Warrior. I think Untamed speaks to a little bit about what I'm trying to talk about in the transformation program. I'm actually writing a book that is going to be essentially each theme is going to be a chapter, and I'm going to offer some insight. I'm going to offer some the lessons and the experiments. And so I will offer one of the experiments I love to offer clients, deciding and knowing and naming what they want. So my 8-year-old would come to me and say, "Which shirt should I wear? It the one with the rainbow or the one with the unicorn?" And I'll be like, "Put your hand on your chest, pause, go inside, and ask yourself what's going to give you the most pleasure." And she'll humor me. She does it. And she'll be like, "This one." And she'll be so proud of herself because she chose herself instead of asking. So like really making these smaller choices. So I invite clients to the next time they are deciding what they want to eat for dinner, they go inside and they ask their body, what do what would give you the most pleasure? What would give me the most pleasure in this moment?
Mhm.
And then feeling into that. And so I think, that's a fun experiment that I often offer.
Yeah, that's great. And it's accessible. You can do it when you're sitting at a restaurant deciding what to order on the menu. You can do it when you're in a relationship deciding if you want to stay married or get divorced. It sounds
Yes.
like it's a thing where it's just about, okay, I'm in here and this is my world and I get to have authority over what my choices are.
Mhm.
So that's a great tool for the viewers. Um, I really appreciate that. And certainly the books as well. I'm a big fan of Brene Brown and Glennon Doyle. And I know I'm going to be a big fan of your book as well. I can't wait for it to come out. So,
Thank you.
in closing for today, I know that you just mentioned your new book, but are there any other exciting offerings that you have coming up in your practice or any shout outs you want to give?
Yeah, no, I appreciate this conversation so much. Thank you for inviting me to it. Um, yeah, right now I am mostly full in my practice. I do have some space for the transformation program specifically. If anyone's interested, they can go to christinevargo.com and sign up. There's more information, detailed information about the transformation program and the other offerings. I do also offer the Daring Way. I used to, before COVID, offer it in retreats format. Now I'm offering it individually to a few clients, which feels really good and aligned. Um, and I'm offering the transformation program to individuals for now. Later, I think in the fall, I'm going to create a retreat around the transformation program.
Great. So, we'll just stay tuned to your website. It sounds like that's the best place to find
Yeah.
things. Okay, sounds great. So, Christine, thank you so much for this amazing and high energy conversation. I really appreciated hearing your wisdom about transformation and Gestalt therapy and all the other amazing offerings you have in your practice. And I just know our viewers are going to love it. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.